Welcome to the Intimacy Lab. I'm Michelle Renee, an intimacy guide, surrogate partner, and professional cuddler. We're here to talk about intimacy in a much broader view than what you're probably thinking. Most people think about intimacy as sex. We're going to break that apart here. Welcome to the lab. Welcome back to the Intimacy Lab. I'm excited. I have a guest today that we just kind of met very, I guess it was just kind of not happenstance per se, but we stay connected, and I just like when that happens. So I'm joined today by Nikita Fernandes, who I'll let introduce herself, but she's a therapist in New York. That's how I know her, at least, and she can get into the more details of that. But it was like August of 2022. Yes, I have to do a little calendar math. My work husband, Brian Gibney, and I were in New York City to record for the Guys We Fuck podcast. And I don't let any opportunity go, squeeze all the juice out of it. So we scheduled like a coffee little meet and greet for the New York therapy community to come meet some surrogates and chat us up. And Nikita showed up and hung with us the whole time. And it's just always nice when we have people in the talk therapy world that are like, I need to know more about this work. And Nikita's just turned into a huge fan. And we just really appreciate it because there's just, I remember you wrote an article about it. You didn't just oh my gosh, I love your work, but you're no, how do I do this? And you ask questions on the ASEC listserv. How do I find a surrogate in New York City? You're really engaged with that. And I super, super appreciate it. So Nikita, can you give us a little intro as who you are?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. I think, well, first of all, I think it was a serendipitous moment that we met because I remember being still earlier on in my career. I just graduated 2 months before and started down the sex therapy path. So it was just such a beautiful experience to be able to meet you and Brian. And I definitely learned so much from you both. And so I'm so happy that the stars aligned and we met.
Well, we definitely love talking about our work. So it's when we have an audience, you can't shut us up. So
yeah. And it's such important work. So but just to introduce myself, my name is Nikita Fernandes and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a psychotherapist and sex therapist located in New York City. So I work at a private practice where I typically see a lot of poly, kinky, queer, POC clients. I'm also an immigrant myself from India, so I do get a large immigrant community and people navigating different cultural spaces. And so it is really special work to me. I know that most people have their jobs to get paid and then live their life, but for me this work is my calling. It's my reason for being in many ways, and I think that I bring a lot of myself to the work. And so I'll never forget when I met you and Brian, Michelle, and Brian told this beautiful story of how he was called to be a sexual healer, and I think that just really stuck with me, and I see myself as a sexual healer because I do I think that our sex life and just the right to sexual pleasure is a social justice issue, and so being able to help people find that and find comfort in themselves and their bodies is so important. And
yeah, we have that in common. I think that's I think we do very much connect in a not just we are professionals in the sex world, but this it's kind of who you move through the world as, right? I think that's what we have in common is it's it doesn't not touch every part of our being.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to get to reconnect with you at ASEC, the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists conference, which was on the other side of the country from you. So it's fun that I got to see you on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Indeed.
And have you in that space again it's just like, I love familiar,
Yes.
and you're a familiar, and so that always feels really good.
Yeah. I still remember running into you and Brian, and congratulations on the talk that you both gave. I think that more people like need to find out about like surrogate partners, because I think that it is the future of sexual healing. Mostly because we see, like in Western cultures, we see people as individuals in a vacuum. But I think that's where like surrogate partners come in, and they're like, no, we're here to like help you heal relationally. And that's something that has been left out of like Western healing. So it has been lacking prior to like everything happening in the field. So
Yeah, I love the work that I do. I'm always trying to figure out what parts of the work with myself as a person, like as an individual.
mm-hmm.
And I'll say, I keep talking about this on here. I'm really focusing these days on not doing the erotic side of the work. It's just becoming the part of the work that I feel like is work, and I don't like to feel that way.
Yeah.
I've been like discovering my own asexuality. I've been like all these, it's interesting as I've worked through a lot of the trauma in my history, I get to pull those things out of the equation and start to go, who am I?
Yeah.
Right? Without these things kind of clouding things. And sex is something, I am a sex favorable asexual, but when you only have so many like sexual spoons,
Yeah.
it's hard to say, I want to spend these spoons on my clients. And the meat and potatoes of the work does not need to be the erotic component. You saw the presentation at ASECT, and we really got to highlight a case that we never even got naked. And I think body image is such an amazing part of the work. And this client didn't need it, but like I want to gush, and I think this client will be completely okay, and I won't give any identifying details away. But I had a client come into San Diego this week to do a couple of longer sessions with me. She's from the East Coast. And we had worked together very minimally. She's not like a regular client. She works with a cuddler on the East Coast, did a lot of work through professional cuddling, has an amazing, wonderful, open-minded therapist who got really excited to meet me. And she got to come out this week, and we did so much body image work. Both of those sessions were spent primarily in the nude. And it's to be even just cuddled in the nude.
Yeah.
To have her body be seen and to see my body were first for her. Right. And today we're going to go do a little field trip to the Korean spa as like a next step to being like naked in public. Like it was kind of like we could do the Korean spa or we could go to a nudist resort together. The Korean spa was a little more contained, like a little more controlled audience. And so we decided to do that. But it's like these little things that I get to witness and experience with the client is just amazing. And it's such a high in so many ways.
That's so special.
It is. And her therapist is just like, this is amazing. Wrote me a really lovely email after the first day. And I was like, oh, I wish I could just like share this email with the world, and I can't. But it doesn't mean I won't go back and reread it on occasion when I just need a little boost. Because I think the part that really hit me the most was she said, you've clearly had to do a lot of work on yourself to be able to do this with the clients. And it felt so seen and validated for all the work that I have put into working on myself so that I can show up better.
Yeah, that makes me really emotional. I think it's
and let me just, this client does such amazing work. Like she shares with me what she's doing to work through her stuff, and I'm crying. Right in session, she's not crying anymore about this, and I'm like got tears running down my face because it's just like, oh, I work with some badass people that they're taking huge leaps in service to themselves. And I just get to be one of the leaps, and that is so fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a large part of this work is like, as much as we help our clients, they also inspire us and like
Mm-hmm.
connect us with our own humanity, which, you know, sometimes gets lost along the way in this crazy world. And so,
One of the things I've had to learn on that side
mm,
is not like the dual relationship thing. I had one of my first female cuddle clients. It took years to get a female cuddle client, and she shows up and she's just, again, another badass that's doing her work, right? And I got fangirly and was like, we should go to dinner, and I want to hear more. And I quickly realized that it doesn't work very well, because it's still a very imbalanced relationship, because I'm not really growing through the client as a friend, right? Um,
yes.
and so I learned my lesson there, that I have to keep that kind of like, it's cool to want to be like a fangirl of my client, but I can't have the dual relationship component.
Yeah. I so feel that. I absolutely, sometimes I'm just like, I wanna get to know my clients as people because they're lovely and I want to be their friend. But then it's like, no, because we have to think about like the power dynamics in the space and in the relationship and all of that. But it's still special that we get to be a part of their journey in some way.
Oh, absolutely. It's just keeping it contained, right? And I had to learn that myself, and I had to kind of go over that with a client recently about why that just
Yeah,
doesn't work. So,
absolutely. I know
yeah.
you had also mentioned a little bit before we started talking about this, like about like your own like identity coming into your asexual identity, and I actually had a chance to listen to the recording that you did with Aubrey, and I just want to
Yeah.
shout her out. She's phenomenal, and I'm really happy that, you know, the two of you were able to have an episode out there, because I think a misconception in this work is like almost like this hypersexualization of professionals in this field, which isn't the case, because eroticism is not just about sex, it's about intimacy, it's about connection. And so many times that is platonic. And I think that's where people have a really hard time like sitting with that, because we just hypersexualize everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that spills over into relationships too, though. It's like what we expect out of relationships,
Yeah.
right? And when people come to us and how do I, rekindle the sex in my relationship? I'm like, well, what's the platonic intimacy like in your
Yeah.
relationship? Can we start with that foundation first? Because I know for me, it's imperative for me
Yes.
to get that bucket filled before I can have the sexual bucket filled.
Absolutely. And in the past, when I've done like work with couples around things like sensate focus, I know that a lot of folks, what they enjoy is sex being off the table and still
Mhm.
being able to engage in touch that's non-sexual. And that is ultimately what builds that like closeness. And it's not even necessarily an eroticism, it's just like this like romanticism of like, this feels very romantic for us to be together. And I think that's just so powerful, is rekindling that are together for a long time can like fade for whatever reason, and a lot of the times it's because that platonic touch goes away. And
Yeah,
it's just,
sometimes the only time they're getting touched is when it's with
yeah.
intention to move it to erotic, and it just starts to feel like an obligation or an expectation. And expectations are my number one boner killer. Like
Yeah.
I had my first marriage was heavy in sexual coercion. We didn't know that's what it was at the time, and I
Mm,
think a lot of it for my ex-husband was just the societal messaging of what a relationship is supposed to look like, what my job is, or what my contribution. I decided at some point my contribution to the relationship was sex,
yeah.
like as in like I was a stay-at-home mom. I'm not providing financial to the family. I'll provide the sex so that my husband is a happier person, which
Yeah.
looking back was so not helpful. It was not helpful to me. It may have been a band-aid for him, but it didn't actually lead to stronger connection. It just
Mm,
led to a lot of resentment and a killing of my sex drive. And all these, like it wasn't going to make it better. It wasn't the solution. It was just really a short-sighted, like, yeah, Band-Aid. It just yuck. And so I like to talk about, like, you want to re-engage sexually with your partner. You've got to give them space. You've got to let them know you really like them as a person and want to spend time with them, even if it's not sexual time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think just in like our modern day and age, when we're so busy like working and doing other things, oftentimes the times that we spent with our partner end up being sexual, and then there's just like that idea of, okay, I'm only around because my partner like gets something sexually from me, or that is essentially what's keeping our connection.
And that can be true, and it could be false, right? It could be that just happens to be what you both really like doing together, right? And that's okay. But if there's somebody that's not communicating that fear that that's all they're there for, or would this person spend time with me even if I was a no to this? Am I willing to find out? I had a couple I was working with. I don't work with couples very often. But they were going through some desire discrepancy stuff, and they're a lovely couple. They've come to me for lots of different things over the years. And what I love about them is they work from home, both of them, and they've decided to take like a half hour of their lunch break every day to just cuddle.
Oh, I love that so much.
And it helped. It helped rekindle the sexual intimacy by having that 30 minutes of just time together, just platonic time together with that physical connection.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So start there, people. If you're listening to this going, Michelle's going to teach us about sex because it's called the Intimacy Lab. I always say, like, so much more than sex, but we are sex geeks and we love to talk about sex. So for our We're Not Really Strangers today, Nikita's a fan of We're Not Really Strangers. And I was like, I have all these expansion packs. And she was like, oh, do you have the sex one? And I was like, oh, I've not opened this one yet. So I'm so like stoked that you want to answer these with me. So I think this might be how much time do you have today? Do you have a hard stop?
I don't have a hard stop for at least another hour.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because if these are good, we might do a few.
Absolutely.
If you're cool with that. Okay. I'm randomly picking one. And so, wild cards. I avoid those. I don't know how you feel about them in general, playing this game.
Yeah, I like that they're interactive, but sometimes I just want to talk and answer questions. So
yeah, I did them. I did them one time in a session, and I was like, I'm never doing wild cards in a session again. They're just too. I think I had to make up a song about my client. Like, it was just weird. Anyways. Okay. Question 1. What's your go-to outfit when you're going to a booty call?
Oh, I love that question. I often dress the way I want to feel, and for me, like, lingerie is always this really powerful thing. Like I know some people, put on lingerie for their partners, and for me, it's like a little bit for my partners, but mostly for myself because I feel really powerful in it. And so red is like one of my power colors. So red, something that's red with lingerie. And probably because it's like winter in New York right now, just like a coat over that.
You'll do like the whole, like, you don't know what's underneath here.
Oh yeah. I
can see you doing that. I am quite the opposite. I am such a low key, like when I go to like a sex party, I'm like, could we just get to the naked part? I don't want to have to pick out clothes. Like, it's not my jam. So for me, like, my outfit when you're going to a booty call, which has been a long time, I'm like always in like really casual clothes. It's more so, it's probably similar to any other place where I know I'm going to get naked, is like something easy to throw back on, and like almost like the version of like a muumuu of like a dress that I can just slip on and not have to Like it's easy on, easy off. And I'm more so about what am I packing for the booty call, right? Like I got to make sure I got my little sex bag with me that's got a variety of condoms and lubricant and gloves and like the basics. Like, do I need to bring a vibrator? Are there any other toys I want to bring with me? Like, what's the plan today? That's probably more important to me than like what I'm wearing.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely love being naked. Like if I could live my life naked without clothes, I would 100%. So hard agree.
Yeah. There's an article in Psychology Today. I saved it. I should go find it and put it in the show notes, but it talks about one of the best ways to get over body image issues is to be naked in public. Because I think people have this idea of like the nudist culture and things like that they're all these just beautiful people and my body's not perfect and I can't be in that space. It's like, that's not how it goes. So if you ever come to San Diego, we'll have to go down to Black's Beach, which is the nude beach here in San Diego.
I would love that. I would love that so much.
Come out and I have this room for you. You can sleep in my cuddle space.
I'm gonna take you up on that. I'll be there.
That'd be awesome.
Yes.
It's fun living in a destination city.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I love
you're in New York, so you get the same thing, I'm sure. Like people come through town all the time and you're like, yay. Yes. Yeah. It's cool. All right, you ready for another one?
I'm ready. Yes.
Okay. Let me quit drawing the wild cards and we'll be good. Okay. What do you hate to ask for but love to receive? Oh, I know what mine is. This is going to be very TMI. What'd you say?
First.
Okay. So let me preface this to say that this client that was in town this week, I think late 50s, not had a real intense, like expansive sexual history, intense sexual history, but not from a great place. But doesn't have a lot of like experience around like the sex positive world. So like every time I open my mouth and talk about something in my space, she's like, what does that mean? What is pegging? Like, yeah. So I blew her mind with analingus the other day, not doing analingus, but exposing her to the idea of it. Yeah. So I didn't always love receiving it. But that's shifted lately and I never ask for it. So if my husband listens to this, he might get some ideas or permission if I ever turned him off to the idea. We've never really revisited it. But I like receiving it. Like maybe I like receiving it because it's something I didn't ask for. Like it's a mind thing of like, oh, he's so into going down on me right now that he's going to go down on all of me.
Yes, definitely. And I love that our body has so many different pleasure points that sometimes we only focusing on like the chest and like the front genitals. We have so many more exploration points to explore. So
yeah,
I love that. Very similarly to you, I think something that I have a hard time asking for is like having partners focus on other parts of my body that aren't just the genitals or the chest. So having like erotic like touch on like my neck or like my arm, my legs, like really just staying on like the non-genital zones, I think can be incredibly erotic. But I feel like we watch a lot of porn and because of that our mind is like sex, like let's just jump to penetration. And so I have a hard time asking for people to just slow down with me and like let's touch the arms. And that's something
build up the longing, right?
Exactly. Build up the longing, stay in like the somatic experience of it all rather than just jumping to like getting your pleasure met or like getting that fulfilled.
Yeah. There's a thing that Paul and I do sometimes. It's not a spoken, like we're not like, oh, this is what we're going to do today. But once in a while, we'll kind of get in this groove where we're like, let's say we're 69ing and we will match each other's touch. So it's almost like you're controlling the other through how you're touching them, that we kind of
Wow.
mimic each other back and forth sometimes. And we did it recently where it's like neither one of us were like doing any form of penetration. Like it was like to the tease of like, oh, I like what if your fingers enter me, I swear to God, I'm going to explode kind of feeling, right? And I like to play with assholes. So it is very much something we can match each other with. So it was like, he's just touching the outside of my vulva. So I'm just touching the outside of his anus, and like this kind of mimicking back and forth, but we didn't ever say it verbally. It
Wow.
was just this, and it gets to draw it way out, right? Like, it is really like it's this conflict of like this drawing out and teasing is feeling so good, but also this other thing would feel so good. But I know that like neither one of us are going to like hold back on the orgasms, and like it's gonna end faster if we give in to our inner 13-year-old, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, woo. Okay, let's do one more, and then I want to talk about what you're up to these days. Okay. What's the hottest thing someone has ever said to you in bed? I got to think about this one for a second.
I think the hottest thing that someone has ever said to me was like, I love your moans and like the vocal sounds you make, because I'm a very vocal person, like generally, but also in bed. And I'm very big on this idea of like affirmative consent rather than my partner having to be like, hey, did that feel okay, how was that? Like, I'm very much like, I'm gonna keep telling you it feels good so you don't have to guess. And so
Yes.
I can be very like vocal about that in a way that feels good to me, and sometimes it almost feels like I'm like singing, and it's beautiful, and I love when my partner is able to like acknowledge that and say like, I love the way you breathe, I love the way you sound. Because I'm a very like sensory person, so getting lost in like the senses is like extremely erotic to me, and so that has to be one of my favorite compliments.
I one of the things I tell new lovers is like, I'm going to make lots of different noises because I am also a little noise person. If I'm not making noise, that's when you should wonder if I'm enjoying it. Because some of my noises are confusing. I just gonna throw that out there, right? So I'm like, a noise is good. It doesn't matter unless I'm saying like, nope, that's it. I'm done. That doesn't work for me anymore. Um, if I'm making some kind of noise, it's probably it. But even like in a platonic space, I'm one to make little noises. And I have this new client. There was a day she goes, what is that noise you make a lot? And I'm like, we figured out it was just kind of this, like it's an affirmative, like, this is yummy kind of thing. And
Mm.
so I have in my bathroom mirror, one day I was working through my own shit and I wrote with like dry erase marker, I deserve pleasure, in like all caps across my mirror. And I left it there because I thought my clients might really appreciate seeing that. And then another client was in there washing their hands or using the bathroom, and he added, I deserve hope. And
Wow.
then this woman was in there and she's like, she comes out. Well, the first time we worked together, she left me a couple of puzzle pieces on the mirror because we had this kind of like aha moment at the end of the session where she was realizing she was putting some not only puzzle pieces together of her story and how things link up, but also we were talking about her doing a puzzle because we were like, how do we connect with our inner children, right?
Mm.
And one of the things she used to do as a kid was puzzles, and so she wrote some puzzles, she drew some puzzles. And when she asked me about the sound I made, so she went in and she wrote on my mirror just as like a reminder of that conversation. And
Love
yeah,
that.
it's super cool. My answer, I mean, although that is one of them, the hottest thing, who for his lack of sexual experience, like he did this thing. He was going down on me, and he comes up and he goes, God, I just love the way you smell. And
Mm.
I was like, dude, that will get you laid all day long, because if you understood how much societal messaging there is and how self-conscious most vulva owners are,
Yes.
right? I think he would also say, like, I love the way you taste. Those two things interchangeable for me, right? Like, that will go so far to just like relaxing your nervous system
Mm,
and letting you be much more present, because that's those thoughts get in the way of so many people's pleasures. Like, if you're worried about how your vulva looks, tastes, smells, you're not going to be able to be present.
no.
It's a total block. So that's like, that's my answer.
I love that. I'm definitely
Yeah.
a smell person, so I'll usually tell my partners, like, I love the way you smell. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was fun.
that was
Thank you
really,
for diving into the sexy cards.
yeah.
I hope more people, I haven't offered it honestly to anybody yet. But looking at who's coming on the show in upcoming days, I'm thinking my friend Ruby Ryder. I don't know if you know of her work. She does a pegging podcast.
That's so
Um,
cool. I'll
she's
have
like
to.
the queen of pegging, and she is like my best friend and also like surrogate mother. Like, if my mother could have been like um a cool sex positive sex worker, like fairy godmother, that is this woman. She is amazing, and I bet you she'll want to play this deck. Thanks for
Incredible.
breaking that one open. Um,
Absolutely.
what are you doing these days? What do you have in the mix that you want to talk about? Because I know that you got some stuff going on, and I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yes. Yeah, this is a very exciting year for me. There's a lot of stuff coming up. But I think the biggest one, a couple of the biggest ones are I'm finally going to be licensed as a therapist. And so I'm just so ready to have, that licensure, and feel somewhat independent and good about that. And then also be able to take on like supervisees, because the world needs more sex positive therapists. And so very excited about
Yes.
teaching other folks what I've learned. Um, the other big one is I'm going to actually be speaking at a conference in May. And so I would love, for like people to come to that. It is the organization putting on the conference is called Something Positive for Positive People. And the person that runs it, Courtney Brame, he does phenomenal job on advocating for people that have herpes and educating people about the stigma. He does like support groups. He has his own podcast, which is really informative and incredible. And so he is putting on like the first of its kind, this herpes themed conference that will be geared towards like healthcare professionals and people in the like bodywork industry as well, to come learn about how to best support clients with herpes.
That's wonderful.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. The theme of the conference is Sexual Health is Mental Health, which is a very important topic. And it's also the name of the speech that I'm going to be giving at the conference, just around this idea of how we've completely neglected sexual health, and how a lot of folks that have like chronic STIs are like suffering from like the lack of education, having to educate people themselves, the toll it's taking on, people's mental health. I myself have genital herpes, and I work with clients as well. So I'll be speaking from not only my own lived experience, but how that shows up relationally in working with clients that also have herpes.
Yeah. What is it they say? The worst part of HSV is the stigma, the social ramifications of it. We have not talked about this. I came up against this for the first time after my divorce. I got involved in the BDSM community, and I had a blog at the time, which is no longer living on the internet because I had a friend hosting it and he changed host and didn't take my blog with him. But thankfully I had a downloaded copy of it. So I'm going to put it into like a PDF to make it available, because it was kind of like a live diary of my exploration into kink and poly and all this stuff. And it was a lot of blogging about body image work that I was doing. And I've just had a lot of clients and people read it over the years that have felt like it was really useful. And there's a section in there on herpes. And I showed up at a party one day, a BDSM party, and I walked in. This is the only time I think I've ever experienced sexual attraction. I walked in and there was this beautiful man. I love bald men. He is this older, beautiful bald man, and he's buck naked with his dick on a leash. And I just it was the most uncomfortable feeling, because I don't think I've ever felt this any other time. So I was very scared by the feelings that I had happening in my body. And I was like, holy shit, I think I'm going home with this man tonight. Like, that was the thing in my head. And I was like, no, I have my kids this weekend. I have to get home. Like, it was this interesting, immediate, like, push pull. And so I did not go home with him. A girlfriend came up to me at some point and said, hey, would you like to go get out of here and go shoot pool somewhere? And I was like, yes, get me out of here. Because I was afraid of this. I was doing lots of one night stands at that time. I have no issue with going home with a stranger. It was this, like, the attraction part was so foreign to me. And I didn't realize what that was until looking back at it now, talking to Aubrey. Like, Aubrey did a lot of consultation with me to help me understand what was kind of going on for me. And so one of my friends is like, the next day is like, I saw your interest in this guy. You should definitely go check his FetLife profile. There's some really important information there. And I was like, I know what you're saying. Like, he was super cool. He was like, owner of HSV. Like, he really publicly led with that. And so it left me in a place of like, God, I'm feeling the stigma, and I didn't even play with him. Right. So then I started to do research, and I started to learn more about like the lack of testing around it. Right. So like, in the end, it was really, really interesting. And the way that it informed me moving forward was like, the only people that actually know their status are people that have had an outbreak.
Yes.
But how many people don't know their status? Exactly. So my rule is to treat people like they do. Don't assume they don't have it because they're not telling you. Just make decisions based on the assumption that if they do, how would you like engage with them the way that you would engage with people that do know their status? Yeah. Right? Like, make informed decisions. We cannot have safe sex. We can have risk-informed sex. I love right? That. And we need to know what our risks are for all sorts of different different risks. Yeah. Different STIs, different forms of contact, what your risks are for those things. I'm going to drop a link into the notes. There's this like list from some place in San Francisco that I really love that breaks down different forms of contact and what you're at risk for. Like, and it's really, really interesting. It doesn't give you like percentages or likelihoods or whatever, but if you do this, if it's oral sex with a vulva, you're at risk for this. If it's oral sex with a penis, as both as the giver and the receiver, what your risks are. It's really, really good information. And people should stop engaging in sexual contact with their head in the sand. Yes. Right?
Indeed.
And then act like they're this victim because they haven't done their education.
Yes. And I think that, like you mentioned, right, there's no safe sex, there's safer sex. But at the end of the day, like, and I understand I'm saying this as, someone with privilege and a healthy body, but STIs like chlamydia and gonorrhea, they're essentially a little bit like colds that you take a medication and they're gone. With herpes, so many folks have like herpes around their mouth, and they get
Mm-hmm.
cold sores, but it's not the same stigma as like having genital herpes. People
Yet
share time.
they're essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. But we do put this extra stigma on it because of the means of contact, or what we like, the social stigmas around sex in general. Yeah,
Indeed.
I did do a test. Back when I was doing all that research, I went and paid for my own lab test to be done just out of curiosity. I was in the stage of my life where I was very sexually active. I had just even hosted like a kissing party where like I had people, it was like a second base party because I wasn't super comfortable with sex parties at the time, but I was like, I love making out with people. So it was like waist up kind of party. Like you could have contact from the waist up. And my goal was like to make out with every person at my party. I think I missed a couple people. So I think it was like 15 people there and I probably hit 13 of them. Not only did I not even get a cold after that event, people are like, you're gonna get sick kissing all those people. It was just like a weird, like it's a low-key slut shaming kind of thing, I think. But I also was surprised. I went into that taking that test going, I probably at least have the markers for either HSV 1 or 2. 1 is oral, right? 2 is genital.
Yeah.
And you can get 1 in the genitals and you can get 2. It's so, this is why it's such bullshit.
Exactly.
It's such bullshit.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I was surprised that I didn't come back with any markers. But it's one of these things that's like, you got to go through the world. Just most people don't know their status. So you have to make decisions assuming that they don't know their status. It's not that they know that they don't have it. They just don't know if they do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have HSV1 genitally, so
yeah,
not as common as like people usually having it around their mouth, but I think there's a part of me that's just accepted that, I want to be in these spaces and I'm accepting the risks of being in these spaces. And I've also done the work around undoing some of that stigma for myself. So, but I know that other folks, see differently and I want to respect that. But I think this conference will be great for many reasons. One of the biggest ones being like, really starting to question critically, like who's benefiting from misinformation, who's benefiting from stigma, and like really thinking about like what tools do we need to give our clients to be able to undo all of the sex negative internalized stuff that they have going on, even around STIs. So I think it's going to be, a powerful topic. And in addition to the talk I'm giving, Something Positive for Positive People, which is the nonprofit, they do a survey every year where they collect data that people with HSV like fill out a survey and then they compile all of these results. So I believe that this is the first year that they've had like one of the highest amount of like results, and so they're going to be talking about their findings at the conference. So I really invite folks to like come and like hear where we are right now with our education, undoing the stigma, how people feel about themselves and their bodies. I think it's going to be really rich content.
Is this, I assume it's online.
It's
making
online.
An assumption. Yeah. I think it's such the opportunity you give people to watch people talk about this with ease, right? You get to model the normalization of these conversations. It's very similar to the feedback that I get around Soft Cock Week, in that you've made this so much easier to see myself being in a emotionally relaxed space around this. Like, it doesn't have to be this taboo topic. It doesn't have to be something I should carry shame for. Yes. Right? It's like you're liberating through your own liberation. All these other people they don't, so many people in the regular world, I say outside of our little sex positive bubbles. Yeah. They get to experience what we get to experience on a regular basis, which is this normalization, neutrality around it. And it's not always like that. Like it even in the professional world, it isn't normalized and neutralized as much as I wish it was. So thank you for being a part of that and being willing to like just stand up and say, I want to talk about this. I want to come on the podcast and talk about this. That's what we need. So I love you for that.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Yeah. You said it was created by, was his name Courtney?
Courtney Brain.
Yeah. I've just recently been connected with him for the West Coast Intimacy Professionals group. I haven't got to meet him yet on a call, but I can't remember who connected us. But somebody, you know how our networks go. It's like these little webs of connection. Yeah. So one of these days, I'm sure soon we will actually meet on a Zoom call or something. But I'm definitely going to promote the conference because it sounds like it's just another one of those stigmatized areas that I want to like kick the dust off of and like shine a beautiful ray of sunshine on it. Yeah. I joke about doing like a full-on penis appreciation month where we just appreciate the outliers, the smaller penises, the uncircumcised penises, any of the stuff that people get really hung up around. To just say you all deserve love.
Yeah.
Just like vulvas, all the vulvas are beautiful. All the penises are beautiful. It doesn't have to be one size fits all.
No.
And I have an upcoming TV appearance coming up that'll, by the time we'll have to make sure we get the dates so that this drops with plenty of time for all the registration and stuff for the conference. But later we're recording on January 6th, just for like reference as you're listening to this whenever it comes out. And I think it's January 24th. I have an episode of Sex Cells on Fuse TV coming out where I'm a sexpert because of my connection to Soft Cock Week. I'm in a segment and it was super fun and like lighthearted, but also like, I was kind of like, I was co-facilitating a conversation with the host and she's more of a comedian. And the three men that we were talking to are all comedians. And I'm kind of, I joke that I'm the heart of the conversation. That I got to ask the more soft questions. And I hear the segment turn out really well. I can't control everything in the world. My unfortunateness of that segment, of that episode, is that part of that episode is also going to a doctor that does penis enhancements. And I have feelings about that. And I've decided to like, well, as I talk about this episode and my participation in it, I want to also give space to say, you don't need to change your dick. You don't. And let's not forget there's risk on the other side of doing these things. I had a client that had never even had sex before, went and had their penis lengthened and ended up with a permanent erectile dysfunction, and then proceeded to go the route of an implant, which is, you know, there's these things we can do, right? But the idea that somebody took his money when he hadn't even had a sexual experience, but had probably some message in his head that the reason he hadn't had a sexual experience was the length of his penis or the girth of your penis, or, you know, they're enhancing length and girth these days. And I just want to say, like, why go through that?
Yeah.
Like,
that's really sad.
It does. It makes me sad too. And I'm a person that can, I guess, handle a lot of length and girth. I remember dating and people like, can you handle a big dick? And I was like, is that a real question? Oh, wait. I guess for some people they can't take that. And I just happen to have a lot of depth in space, I guess. And all that said is like, my husband has a really extra normal penis. Like, it's just, I think I had a friend back in Michigan that used to call it extra. Like that is not the quality of your sex. No, it's just not.
Yeah. And I think that's where things like sexual tools come in, like like strap-ons, and there's different ways to have like non-penetrative penis focused sex, which is why I'm very grateful for you doing Soft Cock Week. I tell all of my clients about it. So definitely need a month.
I'm really glad we haven't made an official announcement yet, but it's coming. So I'm going to say it here. But I have a director of Soft Cock Week this year starting, because I'm getting like, it's fun to start stuff. And I just was running out of steam on the keeping it going and having the passion to keep infusing it with more and more energy. And I met a colleague who is just as enthusiastic about it. And her name's Erica Leroy. She's a sexological body worker, basically hands-on sex educator, out of, I think, currently Portland, but I'm not sure that it's going to stay that way. She's got the passion, and she's happy to jump on and be the director. I get to stay the founder and just kind of hand off a lot of the responsibility to her and let her infuse her generation of love into it, right? Like, I did it the first year. Last year was, it's all about me following my yes. And my yes showed up around starting the podcast. So I started that for just that week. And I think she's going to carry it on so that it's a year-round podcast. It's not just something that we do once in November every year. So it's exciting that this conversation is going to become even more regular and normalized. And the people out there that need the support will have that modeling happening on a regular basis.
Yeah. Incredible.
It's exciting. If you come to the West Coast, specifically San Diego, I host a regular happy hour for mental health and intimacy professionals. And I also do like a coffee social every once in a while for mental health and intimacy professionals. We kind of rotate back and forth between those two.
This makes me think about something I said to a friend recently was, I want to be a part of an organization that isn't just therapists. I want to work to maybe even be led by like people in the sex work industry and body workers, and have it be a sort of collaborative space, because I find that a lot of the institutions that exist mainly cater to like therapists or people with PhDs, and that's not where the lived experience is, and we need to infuse our work with lived experience. So
I have to say, even though I cannot be certified by ASECT, and I don't know if I want to be certified by ASECT, they have given us a lot of space as somatic body workers to be able to educate and expand the therapy world's understanding of what we do, because most you guys don't come out of college with any of this information.
No, not
and
at all.
So if you're a therapist out listening to this and you're not already connected to me, because I think that's pretty much how people find this podcast, but I'm sure at some point it will have a little bit of its own legs. There are opportunities to connect with this community. The West Coast intimacy professionals and the East Coast intimacy professionals are two groups that Brian and I are involved with. Well, Brian and I do the East Coast, Phoenix Mandel and I do the West Coast. But it's a group, we meet every other week virtually for just peer-to-peer support around cases and ethics and all these things that affect us as touch workers, talk workers, educators. It brings a whole, like you just said, it brings sex workers and therapists and sexological body workers and surrogate partners and platonic cuddle professionals. Like, we all get to come to the same space, and those are opportunities. And also, like, if you're in ASEC, the special interest group that we do for somatic sexuality professionals is an option too. There's things out there popping up all the time. And if you want to know what they are, I tend to be in the middle of it. So contact me and I will direct you. If it's not something I'm running, I usually know what else is out there that I can direct people, like, to be the hub.
You're such a gift to us all.
Well, my brain collects resources, and the fact that I get to put them to use is like, makes me feel useful. Like, it makes me feel like there's a reason my brain collects information constantly. And it's for this. So everybody has access to each other and I can connect all the people together. So Nikita, thank you for joining me. How can the people find you?
So I have my new website that I launched recently. It's called healingwithnikita.com. So that's HEALINGWITHNIKITA.com. That's a great way to find me, reach out to me. And then my email, if anyone is interested in connecting, is Nikita. So that's NIKITA at TexGibson, TEXGIBSON.com.
Wonderful. I'll put it in the show notes. So if you didn't write it down, you can go check the notes on this and they'll be there. Nikita, I'm so glad we connected when we did. Thank you for being an enthusiastic yes. And thank you for asking for what you want by coming on the podcast and sharing your plans. And let's do it again. Let's answer some more of the sex questions again.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Thank you for having
All
me.
right. Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you back here soon. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to comment, pose a question, or learn more about the guests often featured on the show, visit us at intimacylabpodcast.com. Please also take a moment to review us on your favorite podcast app. It's one of the best ways to show your support. As for me, you can find out more about my work at meetmichellerenee.com, as well as on most social medias at meetmichellerenee. Let's connect again soon.